Hi, Misha here, and is this the first time I've done a video on a video game character? I'm not sure. Oh well. As I teased at the end of The Predator, for the two of you that actually went to the end of that 2.5 hour video, we're going to be talking not about the Doom Slayer, nope, the original Doomguy from the 90s, when I was a teenager. And I'm actually probably a little more familiar with Doom than you might think. So I want to talk about the figure, but also I want to talk about Doom as an engine and just, rambling on. This actually popped up in my Amazon feed as you might like this, because I've been buying various NECA toys and other things on there. And this MCFarlane Doom Classic popped up. Alcohol may or may not have been involved the day I went for it, but there was a pre-order, came in today. It's pretty much your standard guy, except he comes with this card on the stand that apparently was knocked over. Why didn't you tell me that? It's just a thing. I don't know. You can tell me what it is. Yippee skippy. And he comes with a pretty large, very square base with a foot peg. Now, MCFarlane has released quite a few of these, even the classic guy, the modern guy, a couple of enemies too. So what sets this apart? Well, he glows in the dark, or is supposed to. Is he glowing? Let me know. Great. I guess it's fine, because the original jacket from the original game glowed too, especially when you picked him up. So, well, okay, sure, cool. This isn't going to be a super serious thing, but we actually will talk about history, sort of. So yeah, I don't know if he's glowing. I've had him sitting in the light for a while. Also, even if he is, I'm not sure how the camera picks him up. Cool enough, though. If I'm being honest with you, I've kind of wanted a figure of the Doom guy for a long time, but the high-end ones like Figura are just way too expensive for what you get. And, well, MCFarlane's fine. They're more on a superhero thing, so I don't know how much I'd like their figures for a real world, but this is a video game character, so it's fine. But my thing is his weaponry. You would think a Doom guy should come with a lot of guns. It's kind of his thing. But he doesn't. He just comes with a super shotgun. And that kind of made me go for a while. And it gets even worse. This is the super shotgun from Doom Eternal, with the meat hook on the bottom. And he has the wrist blade, very Predator-esque style, again from the newer game. And also very Predator-esque, he has the launcher unit up here. It is nicely articulated. Moves in several locations, and you can fold it up, so no complaints there. But this is a classic figure, at least for the most part. Okay, there's a little bit of reuse from the newer guy. That's fine. To be fair, actually, Doomguy was short. He was 64 pixels. He was basically a square, if you look at his hitbox. But he was actually quite short. He was as wide as he was tall in the game. And I forget what the numbers were, but someone calculated that if him or Quake Guy actually were live and ran at the speeds they did in the game, they'd be running like a freaking cheetah. Yeah, so he was never a thing anyway. But that held me off for a minute. But I got to thinking, I can mod this. Just because this is what he comes with. doesn't mean it's what he has to stay with. So throughout this video, I'm actually going to ask for your help, because we're going to talk about Doom's weapons, which is kind of the deal. Because the character himself, well, there's not a whole lot to say about it. But before we get into that, let's just take a look at the character's size and a little bit of the motions. Why not? Let me borrow you for a second there, Corporal. Put him more or less toe-to-toe. Even though Doomguy is thicker, it's not as much as I thought it'd be. He's considered a 1 in 10 scale or 1 7-inch or 7-inch scale. And height-wise, he's really the same as Hicks here. And really, when you factor in this being a helmet, his hands are bigger, but they are gloved. And whereas he's wearing regular boots, he's wearing these big old clodhoppers here. So yeah, they scale relatively well together. But Doomguy is thicker. Then again, he's Doomguy. Right, Corporal? Yeah. We'll put you back with the rest of the Marines. And as I was putting him up, I realized I had meant to grab Hicks, and I grabbed Frost. Why didn't you tell me, guys? Oh well, I'm not going to redo that for that. The point stands. Dude, uniform, hat, helmet. Just wanted to bring out a Michael Bean, but grabbed the wrong one. So our Doomguy here. Well, putting him to rights. First, let's pop this super shotgun out of his hands. They are stiff, but earlier I was able to get it in very easily by heating his hands up. I guess they have hardened again. Again, brand new plastic, so. Tight grip though. It'll loosen up with time. These types of figures always do. Well, flip it around there. Hang on a second. I'm going to grab the hairdryer. And never mind, get it out. It's a neat little double-barrel shotgun. And quite large. In the game, I think this is supposed to be an 8-gauge. And you can remove this bottom piece here. So I could modify that, but it's a very new design for what I like. And as for his wrist chopper, luckily it is not affixed permanently. It just pops out, cool little peg. So there's pretty much how he is. He has pretty good hip movement here. The joints are ratcheted, which some NECAs are, but not a lot. And you get a pretty typical rotatey and bendy wrist. To be fair, a big guy like this isn't going to be the most agile. I don't think these are double jointed knees. No, they're not. One point of articulation I really do like are feet. Getting them balanced out. And I'm happy to see that not only do his tilt up and down, they have ratcheting, so these big old clodhoppers should stay in place pretty well. He can't completely close his legs because his manhood is apparently just, he's the Doomguy. What can you do? Oh yeah, he stands fine. I bet these shoulder pads are removable too. And this cannon launcher is as well. In fact, I think you can unpeg it at a few locations. And taking it off is easy enough. You just kind of rotate it until it pushes itself out. But you are left with a big hole in his back. Looks like a zombie or got a good shot on him, but I have an idea about what to do about that. We'll see. Of the bits and bobs, that's probably the one that offends me the least, and it's on his back anyway. So we have him pretty well stripped down to the basics, and yeah, cool head on this, rotating up and down, and I got a mask there. I wonder what's under it. So in the original game, he is stationed at the, well, either on Mars or Phobos, depending on which source you go to. Either way, there's the outbreak because of the portal on the not forest moon, rather desolate moon of Phobos. And he was all there because, well, he decked his former CO. That sounds bad until you realize who his former CO was. Hey, the company is pretty much the same. It's widely been reported that Doom started off as a aliens thing that they hope to get a license for. I've read sources that say it's true, it's not true, but I think it's very, very clear it was definitely inspired by aliens, and therefore the UAC was definitely inspired by Wayland Yutani, and therefore this SOB was his commanding officer, we'll say. So, seems fitting. I recall very clearly when Wolfenstein 3D was the rage. In fact, I even had some teachers at school that liked it, when that was considered quite revolutionary. And then when Doom came out and it was shareware, it was just really accessible. At least it would have been if internet was. Unfortunately, when it came out Christmas of '93, very few folks had internet, and nevertheless the discs got around. A lot of stores had them, either for cheap or for free, and they were bundled. And Apogee was doing a lot of the shareware things too, which is formerly who they worked with. And of course, if you wanted to, you could order the Doom discs from id Software, and they would mail them to you. And we did. In fact, what we did is what we had done for Wolfenstein is we took a collection and we shared. So when you had 6 or 8 people go in on it, everyone pitching in $5 or $10, those Doom discs lasted a long time too. Went through many computers, but when they finally wore out because discs, we literally gave them a Viking funeral. Yeah, we put them on a wooden ship, we lit it afire, and we pushed it across the swimming pool. And we buried them in the backyard. And we were like 15. So, hey, we had fun. That's what counts, right? And it was summer, and it was kind of pre-internet. And yes, I took part in it. In fact, I made Doom levels. Well, a couple. My problem was, instead of just making one and moving on, I kept trying to get better and better and tweak it. I never was good, but I had fun at it. And I learned the technology of the thing, the vertices and sectors, and that really annoying thing in DEU of open sector, making sure it's all plugged in and doing that. Enemy placement, all the little options you could do. You know, it was kind of fun. Doom was pretty stable. You get a lot of graphical glitches and texture misalignments, but it took a lot to crash Doom, at least making levels. Therefore, I decided it'd be more fun to start hacking the exe file. You could really make the game crash good doing that. But I remember I did one using the exe changes where you were a zombie and the enemies were various Doom Marines, and I used the color coding. You know, the indigo one, is we called him then. He's, you know, the gray one. Today, player 2, you had the red guy and then the blue guy for 3 and 4, and then of course your original green guy. So I made the original green guys have, say, a rifle, pistol, whatever, and then say the indigo guys had a rocket launcher, the red guys had a plasma rifle, and so on and so forth. And I may have made one that had the BFG 9000 as well. And you could even give them a chainsaw. Again, when you started editing the executables, there was little you couldn't do. In fact, there were some total conversions. The Aliens total conversion was a very famous one back in the day. There was a Star Wars one too that was pretty popular until Dark Forces came out. And of course, back then, computers, you could do it on a 386, you could do it on 4 megs of RAM, but it really needed a 486 and 8 megs, especially if you get to the bigger levels. And that was also back in the days of LAN parties and dial-up, co-op, or even deathmatch play. Yeah. So, yeah, I have... Oh, he rotates there, too. That's kind of neat. Again, I'm not... yeah, the articulation doesn't seem too bad. I like the texturing on the pants. Again, it's really my first MCFarlane figure. Because they mostly do, you know, superhero stuff. And hey, if that's your bag, more power to you. Just not really mine. This is just more of a for fun thing. But anyway, speaking of McFarlane, I mentioned that since I stripped him down from his existing weapons, well, we need to arm him up. So I have some suggestions here. We're going to try to fill all his weapons slots with a few different things. Some of them I've kind of decided on because it's really the only option I've got in the 110 scale, the 7-inch scale. But other ones I'm going to ask you, which one should I pick? So I'll number them, you know, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And let me know. That's how we're going to arm him up. Have a little fun here. And then he can go to town on those predators we talked about. But yeah, the Doomguy himself was literally a blank slate. Never had a name, never meant to. Didn't even really talk much about his armor. His outfit's just called the security armor. His vest is considered a flak jacket. His helmet is just a helmet. Unlike a lot of other things, like say a Mandalorian, they don't go into a bunch of details what's in his helmet. He's pretty basic. Has a few pouches for ammo on his belt. A little bit of body armor. Apparently he likes showing his midriff. Some boots that aren't 100% acid proof, as we learn in the game. Can't jump, which, yeah, given this body build, I get it. And because he was kind of on the outs when the Marines were sent in to see what was happening on Phobos, he was the one guy left behind on the ship. But when everyone went in and didn't come back out, he was the last man in, and they had taken all the heavy guns, which is how you start the game. A good excuse for starting the game with your fists. To be fair, you do have brass knuckles and a pistol. So let's start there. So yes, you enter in to the Phobos installation where all your heavily armed comrades, not to mention everyone there to begin with, is dead or worse. And you have your fists, although you do have brass knuckles, which we see this figure, yes, he does have hands. And you have a pistol. This figure did not come with a pistol. And in fact, there's a good bit of debate about what kind of pistol it was because of the whole process. id Software actually used digitized sprites. For models like the figure here, they actually made them out of clay. Then they would scan them, and then they would scale them way down to the pixelated thing of the day, which was usually about 320 by 200 pixels, with high res, quote unquote, being 320 by 240. I might be off by a little bit on the numbers, but it wasn't even 640 by 480. Not back then. Not when it was introduced in 93 and 94 when all my group got it. Of course, that was before Windows 95, so running higher res and DOS really wasn't that much of a thing. Anywho, for the guns, they took a different route. In fact, you know what makes me not feel so bad about buying this toy? Because John Carmack and John Romero did the exact same thing. They went to Toys R Us and they bought various toy guns. Water guns, cap guns, battery-powered guns. They were all over the place in the early 90s, especially I remember very clearly after Terminator 2 came out. I mean, you had all the action films from the 80s, and then you had Terminator 2. Now, also because it was the 90s, loud, crazy colors were coming into vogue with toy guns because kids were being shot by cops who thought they had real guns. Not making a political statement there, but yeah, also there were some incidences of people holding up liquor stores or what have you with what appeared to be real guns. And I get it. I had some when I was a little kid that were literally metal and wood and were cap guns or BB guns. So, yeah. As for the pistol, it seems like they picked up a squirt gun, a water gun, that is said to be loosely based on a Beretta 92. This is really before the Glock was super duper popular, so that was kind of the newer gun. And then they digitized it, and then they painted it black, or vice versa. And then they further simplified it by putting it in the game. For example, they kind of did away with the Beretta's open top slide, just made it a smooth top slide, and what have you. And that was the starting pistol. Yeah, believe it or not, it wasn't a Walther PPX. So what are we going to do for guns for this guy? Luckily, MCFarlane offers a few weapons packs. And you get 15, 16 guns or other weapons for $15. And I picked up a couple. And I've kind of pre-sorted these a bit, which might be useful for our Doomguy, because some of the ones that come with them just aren't in line. Plus I have a few more we'll get to in a minute. So, what about a pistol for Doomguy? You know, he's many things, but I don't think he's a revolver guy. What do you think? Okay, he definitely likes things that are bigger, but it's still a revolver. Actually, I think these are kind of cool, but they're just not for Doomguy. I'm going to have to use them for maybe another figure. Luckily, because his trigger finger is separated and pronounced, and these have large trigger guards, they're actually going in quite well. And while this is a loose fit, what I could always do if I wanted to use one of these, a little bit of blue tack in the palm of his hand, and it'll stick. So I think we agree, revolvers, while cool, aren't for this guy. Of all things, one of the sets actually came with what looks like a P38, except the safety's on the wrong side. And actually, you would think, oh, this is wrong for Doomguy. It's not what I'm going to go with, but it's kind of more right than you think. For one, the Beretta 92 uses the same locking system and even has kind of the same type of sticking out barrel as a P38. But also, when they were doing the early alpha builds for Doom, with the very first version, like 0.1 and 0.2, they actually ported over a lot of graphics and things from Wolfenstein, including the pistol from Wolfenstein, which you could argue is either a P38 or a Luger. It was so ill-defined either way. So if you were doing like a beta, or not even beta, but an alpha build, a proto build, and wanted to outfit your Doomguy, this might work. It doesn't seem to fit his hand quite as well as the revolvers, but it's still cool. I wish the safety was on the right side, because it's a neat little pistol otherwise. I might have to see if some of my other figures need a cool little Walther. But let's go a little more modern and bigger. Again, he likes big. Okay, I just kind of rested it in his hand. It will fit, but it's a big enough gun that you're gonna have to actually open his fist. Again, if I heat him up for just 5 seconds, his hands get very malleable. I'm actually quite happy they stiffen up. I mean, who doesn't like things stiffening up? Okay, this is one. I know there's some crazy colors in some of these things, but hey, if id Software could do some painting, I can too. I could paint anything black we want. But the only thing I'm good at painting at. So this is Pistol Option 1. A more modern, just kind of blocky, generic design. And here we have pistol number 2. I'm going to say it looks Glock-like. because it's pretty squared off. Does it have a hammer? No. So I'm gonna say this looks honestly kind of like a Glock long slide, either a long slide 17 or a 34. I'm not sure. Deagle maybe? Awfully big even for that. Actually, Deagle wouldn't be bad. So here they are side by side. Which would you pick? The reason I said Deagle may not be the worst is even though the water pistol used to model for Doom and Doom 2 was based on the 92, it was heavily modified in the first place. And when they came time to do Doom 64 in 1997, which was technically part of the trilogy, he actually had a Deagle. At least it seemed to be a Deagle. More of a blocky, larger cal pistol. Which actually kind of makes sense for him to fire something at least 10 mil, maybe bigger. So we could say, since it's still technically the same Doomguy through 64, that it's that pistol. But which one do you think fits best? I would say the larger one will fit his hand a little better. But this one is probably more correct size and scale. Let me know. 1 or 2. Okay, there was not a submachine gun in the game. However, early on in the Doom Bible, Tom Hall, who was still on the team, he didn't leave until the end of summer of 93. But he wanted and called for a machine pistol. And this is the one they kind of ported over the Wolfenstein pistol for as a placeholder. And, well, it was kind of, well, it's like it sounds, like a machine pistol. It never went into the game. It was never an active, even in the early builds. But there was some artwork made. In fact, some of this artwork would last until the final game. In fact, if there are some screens and pictures, again, not in-game, but just taken of Doomguy, holding a quasi submachine guns, future-y thing, kind of with some MP40 roots, again, going back to Wolfenstein's, and then MP5, because HKs were just getting cool in 93, but also just some future elements. And I like submachine guns and PCCs, so since there's some subguns in these weapons packs, let's try to find one that suits Doomguy. Yes, I know it's a crazy color, but it actually kind of matches Doomguy's vest, and I wasn't not going to talk about an Uzi in the kit. In fact, this is a micro Uzi, or Uzi pistol, without the stock. It does have the compensated barrel. It's actually pretty nicely detailed. It's got the iron sights. Yeah, and it actually fits his hand really well. And it seems kind of like what Tom was envisioning as a machine pistol modernized, because he also called for in the Bible a knife attachment. Now, there wasn't a knife in the set, but we do have a knife from NECA, a NECA knife. So we'll fudge it. So you're supposed to be able to pick up a knife and put it on your starting gun, your machine pistol, as a melee weapon. Melee weapon? Sorry, it's been a long day. And yeah, neither of these would actually see much of anything. The knife would be technically partially in the game, still called knife by version 0.2, maybe 0.3 even now, but yeah, I think just 0.2, which time it was taken out as a knife. And again, the machine pistol, the machine pistol, would never go in, but I just thought it was too cool not to show you this. Again, crazy colors. It actually matches Doomguy. You even got the mag sticking out, and it does fit his hands so well. And Yeah, did a good job of modeling it. Old school gun though. Next, we have one that in no way actually would have been in the game because this barely existed when it was created. But there was a P90 in the kit. Now, take my word for it, if you take your time and get his fingers all worked around, he actually holds this very well. And they did a really good job here, all things considered. I mean, I could nitpick, but what fun's that? I would really like to give this to a character. Maybe if I get another Doomguy, like one of the new style ones. Unfortunately, it wouldn't really be fitting for classic Doom, but it would be very appropriate for a machine pistol type thing, PDW type weapon. Because the idea Tom Hall had was it was basically a single shot semi-automatic thing. Even though he named it machine pistol, it was supposed to be your starting gun, kind of just, pistol caliber, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I think this is really neat. It's just not quite fitting the theme here, but I'm going to figure out a place to put it. This, though, fits quite well. This is a take on an HK MP5K, the short version without a stock and the foregrip. No one tell the ATF and illegal SBR here. This would definitely kind of harken to the MP40, MP5 roots that some of the concept art dealt with. And then it fits his hand well. A little bit of a small trigger guard on it. But yeah, oh yeah, he can actually, he can go on the guard. Just dandy. I don't know if we can grip the front grip because there's not much clearance. In fact, there might even be plastic. No, I think it is separate. It does have the adapter sights though. And it has the end cap, if I can get it out here. Like I said, he holds it well. I'll give him that credit. That's kind of HK option 1. Option 2 is a little bit more of a modern look, but still very much based on an HK, but more of a railed design, a little bit of a longer barrel. And this one does have the A3 style stock and probably a little bit more of a usable foregrip. So which do you think? Again, no SMG in the game, I know, but we're kitting this guy out all the way. And it's definitely enough concept art, and Doomguy deserves a PDW. So which would you pick? Number 1, number 2? Number 1's a more classic design, but it is smaller, which seems to be kind of in keeping with what Hall envisioned. Number 2 looks a little more modern, but it's a little bigger, almost a full size, I guess you would say, versus a K, even though it has a kind of a foregrip on it. Maybe more of the MP5 PDW. Anyway, let me know. 1, 2. So kind of keeping on with the number 2 slot, excuse me. Number 1 is our melee weapon. Number 2 slot, we're not done with it yet, because, well, V0.3 would come out. 0.2 only had one working weapon, and it wasn't the pistol or machine pistol or anything else. And by the time they got to 0.3, they had scrapped the machine pistol idea, and they had made number 2 a rifle. But according to the Bible, it was to be a single shot, or each tap of the button, fire a shot, firing essentially pistol rated ammo. So it's kind of interesting that the starting gun was to be a rifle. And remember how I said they ported over assets from Wolf 3D. Even as they started to modify them, this kind of World War II aesthetic and a lot of the outlines would influence it. Therefore, the first rifle was kind of a retro throwback. And it was sort of kind of based on a Grand-ish, maybe. And we don't have something quite like that in the collection, but we have something that, at least in spirit, seems like it's pretty fitting for the Rifle V1. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Almost like a modernized M14. It's got a box mag. What do you think? This is really the only option I have for Rifle V1. So if we're going to have a representation of the early rifle in the kit, it's going to have to be this one. It was a very plain Jane model. And at this point, 2 by 0.3, the knife had been reclassed as a, quote, bayonet, and it was still a melee weapon you could put on this. At this point, you're just starting with the weapons. You're not doing pickups. If you look at the alpha builds or the proto builds, they're quite fascinating, including not even having sound at this point. So yeah. Point 4 actually disabled other guns that were in the game except for the rifle and the bayonet. It was more of a testing thing, but assets were there, things were improving. And then in 0.5, they got rid of this kind of old school aesthetic, and they tried to make the rifle, again at number 2 key, more modern, sleeker, more in fitting with the future marine aesthetic. And I hit you with that. And what's funny is this rifle, V2, in some ways, very much made it in not only to Doom, but Doom 2. And we have some options here. Here's one. If it looks like a bit of a, kind of generic gun, good. Because in first-person mode, when you pulled up the rifle V2, it looked vaguely M16 and just kind of random 80s assault rifle-esque. Standard layout with standard kind of clipazines, what have you. And this is only one out of the set that I thought kind of fit that relatively small bore thing, but it's still a pretty good sized gun. Kind of interesting. You got a pick rail here, and you got a carry handle and iron sights. Big mag, so threw away. That's one option. But externally, it seems to be more of a bullpup. And why do I say that? Because this actually carried over. The V2 of the rifle would be in 0.5, but by the time of the press release, October, this is when the pistol, we've already discussed, we know and love, replaces it. So we get rid of a rifle, putting it in with a pistol. Not much else changes, still single shot, still pistol ammo. But what's interesting, the external model for the Doomguy, and that matter for the zombies, well, they still hold what appear to be rifles. I also see V2 also sometimes called the carbine or the combat rifle. So luckily this kit has a good number of bullpups. I wonder if even any of these would do to kind of look like the in-game third-person model. Okay, much like the P90, this doesn't really fit our guy here, I don't think. But I had to mention it because it's really cool. This is a Tavor. Pretty good too. It's got a Mepro type optic on top. It's got the charging handle on the on the left side, but in the right spot. It does have a long barrel, even for an 18-incher. But otherwise, and it does have a magazine sticking out. Now it's interesting. Even after we went to a pistol, you ever wonder why when you kill a zombie soldier, they drop what looks like a mag like this, a clipazine? Well, that was kind of a holdover from the quote-unquote rifle. Keep in mind, it was in the game up until the second to last kind of alpha release. So, yeah, I think this is neat. I don't think it's quite fitting for our Doomguy right here, right now, not for this. But I'm happy it's in the set, and I bet you I can find a use for it. But again, we have a good number of bullpups to talk about. Interesting. I've heard some say that it looks like the third-person model in the game. The sprites, I should say. Not really a model, it's not 3D. Looks vaguely like a FAMAS. which in turn is kind of like a VHS 2, and this came in the kit. What do you think? If we kind of tucked it into his arm, I mean, it will fit again with this trigger guard. It's going to take a bit though. But it's a bullpup. Very, again, FAMAS VHS 2 style. .20 round mag, which actually might be a little more appropriate for the rifle as seen in the game. So yeah, which of these would you pick? Should I go more of a first-person view with the more conventional rifle, number 1, or the external view here, number 2? Let me know for the rifle V2. As to the rifle V1, I just noticed something. Again, I just unpacked these. You know what this almost is identical to? A German K43. The magazine's a little wide front to back, but it's got a safety back here. Charging handle's on the wrong side. But this forend, the way it steps here, yeah, I think they're almost going for a K43 look, which again, if this was carried over from the Wolfenstein inspired thing, is at least kind of in a spiritual way very fitting. I don't know, I just found that kind of neat. I bet I can find a use for this somewhere down the road. Alright, it's time to move to number 3, and we already deprived him of his shotgun here. Again, for a newer game, that's fine. In fact, I think this is a neat little accessory, but it's not what we're trying to do. Again, though, this is a big one. And at first, I had a good idea. Well, I've got a couple of NECA shotguns from the Aliens line, the Marines. Let's try those. Actually, I lied to you. This is from the Terminator line. Sorry. Still NECA, though. This is an Ithaca. And as far as Doom 1, we just have the single barrel pump. It's a 12 gauge, 36 at double aught buck. And the model used in game was based on a toy. A Tootsie Toy Dakota, I believe, which was a cap gun, which itself was just like generic pump shotgun. So really anything will do. And since an Ithaca is kind of slick-sided, it works, kind of a slick gun, and the one in the game is distinctly not a military style shotgun, not by the time whenever Doom takes place with all the wood. So in some ways this would fit perfectly, but it just seems so small in his hand. What do you think? The trigger guard's pretty small on this too. I don't know that his glove really could get in there. And they're nominally the same scale, but when it comes to weapons, it gets kind of tricky. Lengthwise, it's fine. Even, you know, because look, the stock's right in his shoulder, and that puts the trigger in his hand area. That's fine. But the barrel just seems awfully skinny. Now keep in mind the double barrel was an 8 gauge. This is a 12 gauge, so it is going to be a lot smaller. Now again, the one we see in the game, the proto model from like version 0.2, which that was the first version I think that was playable, was a shotgun. That was the first one to ever be playable, and it was playable in V0.3. It was actually in the game but disabled for 0.4 as it worked with the rifle, but of course it would come back and then refine the design. The reason I mention this is during some of the alpha builds, instead of having a full length stock, it had a sawed off stock, and I just so happened to have that. This is the one originally packed with Corporal Hicks, but this is the version from the accessory kit, and it would be perfect. It's a cut down pistol grip version, even has a shortened barrel, as you can see. Is that an extended tube? Let me check. No, same length tube, just a cut down barrel with a sight put on. This is kind of what I thought. And it does have a larger trigger guard by a smidgen. And it actually fits. his finger goes in the trigger guard. The barrel still seems a little skinny, but it fits his hand better. And since some of the concept art and alpha work, that's fine, being pistol grip only. And that could work for his Doom 1 level shotgun, aside from maybe looking a little dinky in his hands. But hey, that MCFarlane kit came with shotguns, so let's at least look at them. Besides, this isn't really a military gun. This is in no way appropriate for the Doom game, but I had to show you. It is a pistol shotgun with detaching mag. They even painted the little shells in the magazine. That is so Doomguy. And it has a reasonably large bore. It's a goofy thing, but I've known real world people doing just as silly. Basically, it looks like they turned an MP5 into a shotgun. I'm not going to throw that away. That's going to be fun to deal with. But we're trying to do something for fun as close to the game as we can. So I just wanted to show you that. Again, this will fit his hand, but I'm not going to mess with it for 20 seconds to record a 10-second clip. Not appropriate for Doom, but if he had a self-loading shotgun, it sure would be. This, again, just screams, at least in spirit, in nature, Doomguy. This is semi-automatic, folding stock, drum magazine fed, silenced, at least I presume that's a silencer, shotgun. And yeah, the bore actually scales quite well. Looks to be maybe a 10 gauge. This is crazy, but it's also very Doomguy. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that. I thought it was a cool accessory. This next one, even though it's not really like what's in the game, I'm really tempted to use. I think this is supposed to be a Spaz 12, but I kind of like to think of it as a Benelli M3. That's the one that can either be a pump or a semi-auto, and it has a top folding stock, at least the original M3T did. And in the wonderful film that everyone loved, Doom, I think it was what, 2005? They actually had Benelli M3s. I think this actually fits quite well. It's from MCFarlane, so it scales well at his hand. It does have a stock, even if it's a different style. It does have a forearm that could be a pump. It's got an extended tube, which usually when you pick up the shotgun, it has 8 shells in it, so that would definitely hold 8. Again, in spirit, it's exactly what you'd expect Space Marines to have, even if it wasn't what was in the game. So this is kind of one of those decisions. Do you go what's authentic to the game, or what would be authentic to combat? Number 1, the Cut Down Ithaca. Number 2, the Spaz / Benelli gun. 1, 2. Which way would you go? Let me know. I could make an argument for both. But the next one, it's pretty clear. Even though it's from Doom 2, not Doom 1, we have to have a super shotgun. And the kit came with what seems to be really perfect. Yeah, okay, it's a pistol grip only. But again, I'm going to be honest, that's what makes them for easier holding, and it works. But in every other way, it's got the shorter barrels. It's not an 8 gauge, but it's a good size for it. I think in Doom 2 it's a 10 gauge because it does 3 times the damage of the standard pump shotgun, which is a 12. It shoots 21 pellets. So that's the game. Of course, we could just say it's a bigger bore. So I think it does a good job. It is a cut down hunting style gun, which we see in the game. Actually, the super shotgun, sometimes called the combat shotgun, is anything but. It was a hunting gun. Always was. There's not a double barrel breakover military shotgun. Not since the 19th century, anyway. And this was actually not made from a digitized model. Keep in mind, it came out later after the game. This is why it was number 3 on the keyboard, and you had to hit it twice to cycle between the two. A little bit awkward, but kind of like the chainsaw and whatnot if you had the fist on Berserker. But anywho, they just kind of hand drew it. So there was no gun it was based on, and it's just a double-barreled single-shot shotgun, so it could be anything. They're tubes. It could be a Stevens or what have you. But I think this one that came with the kit, it looks much more appropriate for what 90s Doomguy would be carrying, with the only thing, no stock, but that's okay. It'll make it a lot easier of an accessory for this guy to handle. So, we got you a super shotgun, dude. As much as we don't want to, let's move away from the shotgun and hit number 4 on our keyboard to bring up what the game calls the Chaingun. Although, as we know, it's actually a minigun. And luckily, that's one thing that MCFarlane had me real well suited for. Boom. Almost perfect. And I think with some time and effort, we could even get him to at least simulate holding it 2 hands because of the spacing. But I'm not going to do it one-handed because this is heavy. The drum is actually detachable. Pegs in. And that does save a lot of weight. Now this is exactly right, because this style was so popular. Now when they created it, now Wolfenstein of course had a minigun, a chain gun in it, which is completely not correct for World War II. They should have gone with an MP44. Oh well, this is id Software. So it's little wonder that it would come over to Doom. It's kind of fitting. And this too was based on a Tootsie toy. In fact, I remember that Tootsie toy from Best Buy. It was like battery powered, rotated around, and it was called Old Painless, which is kind of named after Predator, 1987. And then of course that same prop was reused for Terminator 2. So the whole handheld quote-unquote chain gun, minigun became popular. In actuality, these are all kind of based on the M134, which is usually not meant to be handheld, but okay. Yeah, it was going to be in Doom. And the one in Doom had a big fat grip like this with little tiny trigger on top. And it even had a bottom mounted feed device. I think it might have been a square box in Doom, but I could be misremembering. I'm going off some very old memories. Yeah, this is exactly what Doomguy needs. In fact, I could easily see me having this as the one I pose him with. Although I might make a sling for it, because it is heavy. Interestingly, in Doom 2, when we come across the heavy weapons dudes, they use a sling to support theirs. And instead of having a drum, they actually have a belt feeding from a backpack. And I actually do have, in this scale, 1/10 scale, a minigun like that, but it's attached to one of my Terminator endoskeletons, and I don't want to unravel it. But it even has the backpack, and if I so chose, I could even use that to make one. But no, this is super neat. And obviously the barrel is longer than what we see in Doom first person mode, but beggars can't be choosers, and this is more authentic to reality. But you know what always bugged me even when I was a teenager? This used the same ammo as the pistol. Why do you need a rotary barrel gun of this size to fire pistol caliber ammo? That makes no sense. It makes no sense on oh so many levels. But when you look at the origins of number 2 keyboard and number 4 keyboard, things become clear. Because number 4 was not a chain gun or a minigun. It actually was to be what the Bible called an automatic machine gun. Essentially, number 2 was single shot, tap, tap, tap. Number 4 was hold down the button and rapid fire. Keep in mind, number 2 was a rifle or carbine, and so number 4 was meant to be the faster firing machine gun big brother. And let's say the rifle fires 5.56 or even 10 millimeter, having the larger size bullet, higher velocity bullet out of a machine gun single barrel makes a lot more sense. In fact, a lot of Doom mods took the Chaingun out and put some type of rifle or submachine gun that worked too, kind of going back to the MP5s in. And we could do that. We could just say, oh, it's a submachine gun and use that there. Or we could try to make an alpha build automatic machine gun, as they call it. I want to say automatic rifle. It's more correct terminology, but hey. And I thought this would be a good option. Now, the automatic machine gun appeared in version 0.3, and it was alongside the rifle, shotgun, and bayonet, and it was disabled while still functional in 0.4, and it was not only in 0.5, but it actually received a cosmetic update in 0.5, although it still wasn't on the map. So it went through 2 basic phases and looks, and honestly, I don't know anything about them, except they had a buttstock and they kind of had a sci-fi vibe going on. So here's one option. It's certainly a machine gun. It's I believe they're trying to go for a FN 249. We have a Beta C mag. It fits in pretty good, and the Beta C mag is, sorry guys, I'm going to touch you there. It is removable, which is kind of cool. I always like it when you get some articulation with these, let's be honest, quite cheap accessories. Mine does have a little bow in the barrel out of the package, so I will probably heat it up and mush it overnight, fix it. Nope, not a big deal. Overall, pretty nice. Got a metal stock. But going back into my parts bags, I did have one other option as a kind of futuristic automatic weapon. The M41A pulse rifle. This has a small grip to begin with, so it would take me a little doing to get it in his hand and stay there. I'd probably try to go 2 hands if I could. Either way, it does have a metal stock. It does have kind of a futuristic readout. It is automatic, and it does have the benefit of technically firing pistol caliber cartridges, but large ones. So this might be a thing. Again, it was inspired by Alien, the game. So if you're going for the alpha release, yeah, this was in through 0.5, but then it was replaced by the Chaingun with the press release of Doom. And I don't like that decision. If they wanted to have a minigun, it should have been different. I think this should have been a submachine gun or an automatic rifle of some type, personally. Not to say it's not useful in the game. It is. In fact, it has a unique 2-shot mode, which inspired Russia to develop the AN-94. Is that true? Did Doom inspire Izhmash? Prove me wrong. So the chain gun is clear. As for the rifle, yeah, number 1. Or should we go a little more afield and do number 2? Again, we're talking alpha content here, so we can have some fun. Let me know, 1 or 2. Now on to the rocket launcher, or as it was known originally in the alpha, the missile launcher. Still basically the same. And here we just have basically one choice, but it's a good one. Included in the kit was this more or less RPG 7, which is about as good as anything for the Doom rocket launcher. Now, the original quote-unquote missile launcher appeared by version 0.5. I would imagine it took them a little while to implement this, because this is a new type of weapon. Before this, we had basically hit scan. And this wasn't based on a toy in the game. It was more or less just kind of custom drawn. But they did take some inspiration from the RPG, mostly in the grip, trigger. Certainly not in the fire mode, though, because in the game, it's a automatic rocket launcher. Not many of those exist, not handheld anyway. You might argue that it maybe should have been a grenade launcher. In fact, aside from it shooting out straight, it does have characteristics more like grenades, but hey, what have you. But no, this is clearly our number 5 selection. And overall, I'm happy with it for a kind of a real representation. He holds it quite well too. See? And those are the weapons in the Shareware version. And by the way, yes, the knife and bayonet would go away too, never to reappear. And if you wanted to pay for the full version with 2 more episodes, or if you bought Doom 2, you got weapons number 6 and number 7, not to mention some more enemies and new maps and all that stuff. The thing is, number 6 and number 7 are sci-fi guns, so we're going to have a harder time filling those slots. But let's see what we can do. Number 6, the plasma gun, or as it's sometimes known in some areas like the manual, the plasma rifle, which is kind of my preferred term. Basically, it's a chain gun, but 3 times more powerful, which is a good thing. But the flip side is it has slower moving projectiles, but a high rate of fire. It's cool. And it's very sci-fi. But it's not really based on anything. It's a little bit based on an M60 toy, but I couldn't find the actual name of it. Anyway, it's heavily modified. It's also tan, I believe, is what they said. So what are we going to do for that? There's really nothing that fits. Well, maybe this. That's right, the inspiration for the plasma gun itself, the plasma rifle from Terminator. Spiritually it works. Both are more or less bullpup layouts. Neither really have a stock as such. Both are kind of weird. Yeah, you think this will work? I mean, I could always paint it tan. I know it doesn't look the same, but I think it might work. This came off one of my Terminators again. I've got a couple of these, so I could give a Terminator a different gun. He holds it pretty good for being one of the NECA things. It does have, I mean, this is a scope, but we could call it a barrel. That could be the plasma barrel. But it's not corrugated, according to the Doom Wiki. The barrel is like an accordion. The only thing in the MCFarlane set that's anything remotely like that's this. Well, I'm not sure what this is exactly supposed to be. Someone let me know. Yeah, you're kind of running into the limits of my knowledge. It is in a bullpup configuration, and when you look from the front, it does have kind of a corrugated shroud thing, even kind of a blocky end. Honestly, the muzzle, kind of viewing down, if you took the barrel off, kind of reminds me of a plasma gun. But it is a little, even if you chop the barrel down, this is like it'd be a little big. One might say almost too big of a gun to be the plasma. But that's an option. Or we could go even zanier and do this thing. I don't know what this is. So some of the weapons in the McFarlane pack are interesting. I don't know if this is supposed to look like it's shooting. This looks like it's an automatic saw. And while it does have a kind of a thumb hole grip, it's not a bullpup. The magazine's in the front. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is going for. But coloring decides. But that's the best I got. And of course, number 7 is our big fucking gun, the BFG 9000. That's what it stands for. We all knew what it stood for. There was no secret. There was no BioForce. There was no nothing else. That's what it was, because id Software were a bunch of kids with a juvenile sense of humor, and that's why we loved them, because we were actually kids with a juvenile sense of humor. It was kind of loosely based on what was called a roar toy. That one I'm not familiar with. But it was mostly something of its own creation. It was a big to-do, and I really can't think of anything I've got here even remotely like that. I think that gets into like Etsy custom printing territory. The Figma figure does come with the BFG, at least a modern version. The Figma figure is also over $100, so that ain't happening. Sorry. I can have fun with $20 here, not with $100, even if it comes with accessories. Besides, I've made my own accessory set. So, which do you think for the plasma rifle stand-in? Should we go for the actual quote-unquote plasma gun from Terminator? Should we go with this thing? Because it does seem to have the kind of corrugated barrel shroud. And it is a bullpup layout too. Or should we go for this thing because it's just absurd? To be fair, the plasma guns had more than a few model designs. For example, Dune 64 really reworked it. So, it doesn't have to look one specific way. And have you seen anything today that maybe could be modified into the BFG? I was even thinking maybe this, just because in some of the comics, rather than being kind of the big energy gun, if in the games, the BFG is literally that, a big gun. So, maybe this could be our BFG stand-in? Just a thought. But that gets us to the end of all the weapons seen in the original Doom trilogy, unless you want to try to do the Unmaker, but I think that's a little outside of the purview, don't you? And here are our potential demon-killing weapons laid out. Down here we have the ones that are an easy pick, or the only pick. The energy guns, yeah, let me know what you think, if we can do anything there at all. The pistols, yeah, which of the two do you think would be best fitted? Submachine gun, we have a lot of leeway because it's really not something that was much outside of art. And same kind of goes for the rifle and automatic machine gun. But you can have a little flexibility there, but I'd like to pick one for each. Kind of showing the alpha and the full game versions. And once I narrow this down, I actually have plans to make a little display. Because that's what I really wanted, a fully kitted out Doomguy with everything from the games I remember as a kid. And he's got a couple of hands. We've also got this hole on his wrist. I'm going to try to make a clip or a peg for a sheath there, maybe for his pistol. If not, maybe I can hook something around his belt. I can always sling some rifles. And I also put the arm of the ordnance launcher back across his back to give a little area to hook things on. I will probably use this as a hook for like a sling or 2 or 3, where you can just like drop his weapons over it, you know, kind of a stud. Basically a cool ass coat hanger. It's kind of my plan. It also plugs the hole. That's my plan right now. But first I need to figure out which weapons for sure we're going to use so I can customize you that way. But, you know, he's kind of cool, this Lego stuff. There he is. Put him in the classic Doom dying pose. Crumpling down and screaming in mercy. And if you're wondering how I know how all this stuff looks and games and stuff when I'm blind, well, keep wondering. I have to keep some of my secrets and have to keep some of my things. I will say though, I grew up, I was a kid like anyone else, and I've had a lifetime of being me, so hey, there are some rumors out there that Stevie Wonder is actually not blind, so having a little mystery and whatnot's fun, right? But I did want to share Doom with you a little bit. Making maps was a lot of fun. Programming was a lot of fun. And it was a way I could engage with my friends on the computer level. Yeah, I'm glad I picked him up, drinking notwithstanding. I wish someone just made him as in a deluxe package with all the guns, or at least, you know, most of them. But I did it myself. And again, these MCFarlane packs at 15 bucks a pop aren't bad at all. I bought mine on Amazon, so I didn't have to pay the crazy MCFarlane shipping either. I might even buy another Doomguy. I'm kind of interested how the Praetor suit version looks. I wish they did demons, though. I don't think they really do. And a zombie soldier, an imp, a baron of hell. That'd be cool. Yep. So yeah, let me know. I appreciate your help on picking these weapons. Let me know what you think. And again, I can always paint them if needs be because of the colors. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. And if you like talking weapons and guns, you can always go over to the main Misha channel. We're known to talk guns over there from time to time. Catch you very soon. Next time.